Good morning. Welcome to prep school. This is your King Ginger. All right. So I have no guest today. Everyone's got stuff going on, and I didn't get anyone booked. So my apologies. I will point out that coming up April 17th, I'm lucky enough to have Dirk Stanley on, the creator of Faraway Land as well as Mere Anarchy. I'm very excited to talk to him. Someone I really enjoy his work, and I am hoping to kind of pick his brain. But that's the 17th of April. We got some time until then. So, what are we going to do today? Well, first things first, I want to talk a little bit about. I ran the first session of Scum and Villainy last night, which is ostensibly a miniseries, a Star Wars miniseries game that was a birthday gift for the Beard, coming as like a sequel to the Extra Life game I ran with using Power by the Apocalypse system for Star Wars. Basically, it's a hack. Good and bad. If you're familiar at all with Powered by the Apocalypse, the person running the game, they don't roll any dice. It's all on the players. It's a 2 6-sided dice system that is, I would call, I think it's referred to as success with consequence, or a game with consequence. So you're rolling these dice, you're trying to hit a certain number. So 6 or below is you fail. 9 through 7 is you succeed with consequence, which makes things extremely interesting a lot of the time. And then 10 or above is success. It's a very, very easy game to pick up, but it's still got layers and layers and layers of nuance and can really create vastly interesting storytelling possibilities. So we picked up from there, and the whole kind of issue in some ways with the characters in that particular group is they're bounty hunters who literally killed somebody on the HoloNet, who wasn't who they thought it was. They're criminals. They're murderers. The Empire sees them like they failed because they did. And everyone else who is, and this is 5 BBY, so it's 5 years after episode 3. The problem I run into with this is it's hard to balance having potential allies in a situation like that. And also, as they pointed out, in some ways, it's kind of, you get what you deserve. They've done some horrible stuff, and now the chickens are coming home to roost, so to speak, and they're on the run, and they have, even the allies they have are not very trustworthy. So you want to make sure that you get that across in a game like that you're not good peoples. You did some horrible stuff, and there are consequences for horrible actions. But at the same time, you don't want it to be drudgery and be frustrating and be a thing where no one wants to play. I used Mike Shea's session template, and I felt like the hot start was good. The problem with the way that game went was I probably had to make too many dice rolls, and it ended up causing the first session to really just be the hot start. What I'm realizing is I have this anticipation when I'm building these things that I'm going to get a lot crammed into under 3 hours. And the reality is I probably get through maybe half, and sometimes just a third of that, which is, it's frustrating in a way, but it's good in another because it helps me slow down a little, which makes me slightly worried for some of the choices I'm making in different games. So that went on. I think it was a good session. It wasn't great. I don't know when it's going to come out as far as for you to be able to see. Beard is working on some of the post-production. Generally, we don't record things and release them. We just release them. But he's put a lot of effort into some interesting things. Every other time I've run a Star Wars game, we've done the opening crawl and we've done all that. And generally, Casual Doug is involved in that. But since we've switched over to StreamYard and Dougie Boy's been busy, Beard and I have kind of taken a lot of that back, a lot of like the additional creation stuff back from Doug. And Beard's working on a very Clone Wars-esque intro, which I'm very excited to see once it's finished. But for now, it's going to be 3 episodes. If we get a bunch of clamoring, or if the folks playing it want it to be, we might move over to once a month. A good group. It was fun. It was Star Wars. But like I said, it's proof again that if you're really trying to run a good game and you want it to be something that will be satisfying to both you and to the players, it's a work in progress constantly. And I can always tell you the things that I need to be better at, because there's a lot of them. All right, so I was thinking, what do I want to get accomplished in this hour this morning with no guest? Hey, Super Spike. It wasn't a stream yesterday. We just recorded it. We're going to record all 3 parts because there's some post-production stuff we want to do, and then we'll release them. But yeah, it'll be coming out. It's just a matter of when Beard can get that portion of it done, and we'll have 3 parts. I think we're going to do episode 2 like next week, maybe. I can't remember. They'll send me an invite when it's time. So considering I have the prep done for the whole mini series, I'm not worried about it. But I will tell you this: if you enjoy the misery of Matt Lind, you'll love the episode. Poor Matt. Poor Matt's Gamorrean character, it was rough. It was rough sledding for Matt. So yeah, that's Star Wars. It's a thing. It's a thing. What I'm trying to kind of get off the ground now is I also want to run another monthly game. And there is a campaign path or adventure path, whatever you want to call it, in 4th edition. It was in the 4th edition magazines. I think it was either in Dungeon or Dragon. I don't remember which one. And it was called Chaos Scar. And I really, really liked the layout of it. I liked the idea of it. It was kind of a throwback to things like Keep on the Borderlands, where you have a central hub, and from there you just kind of take jobs, more or less, or you just explore in and then get out. And what I want to do with that is I want to run once a month. I want to leave it open to folks. So the premise is very Western March style. It's players get a group together. They submit basically to me they want to play. They've got 3 to 4 players. And then if I think that that's a good group to run, I'll run it. They'll pick a job. I'll generally put between 3 and 5 jobs in front of them. They'll pick what job they want to do, and then that'll be the session. I want it to be encapsulated. So you go to do a job, and you go do that job, and then the job's over. One of the things that would be a caveat to that is one of the people in the group needs to write up what happened. And then we'll post that basically as a running log. The idea is all of these different players and their little groups are different adventuring groups that come into the city, which I can't remember for the life of me what the name is. Let me grab my Chaos Scar notes. I have so many windows open just prepping for tomorrow night, which I'm already prepped for, I should say. I just kind of want to make sure I'm ready to go, so I don't have to come down early to the office and do a bunch of stuff. Go to my Chaos Scar folder. Where are my notes for the Chaos Scar? There. I think it's called Restwell Keep. Yeah. Restwell Keep. So the idea that it's, it's basically the last bastion of civilization before you head out into this kind of untamed area. So you do have a town, you do have a central hub to go to, but it's also a place where there can be some potential intrigue. But that's not a general conceit of these games, because it's only there if players want to play repetitively and build those relationships and explore the Restwell Keep and the surrounding area. The idea is that you pick that job and then you go forward and do that particular job. I think I might have a couple jobs done as well. Like I was working on this at one point, and then we never really got to play it. I can't remember what happened, but yeah. So let's open a job that was done. This is a job. So these would be like a job board. You would get your group together, and then I would approve that group. We'd have an assigned day and time to stream it. It'd go between 2 and 3 hours. My goal is to keep it at that point. And then you'd have jobs laid out in front of you. Yeah, exactly. The focus is a job board. It's the world is not so much like big. It's just you're in a region that's very unexplored, that has a lot of things that can be done in it. So like this is a post by Jarek. And of course, Jarek, common isn't Jarek's first language. So you can see how it takes a little bit to decipher what he's saying. But it sounds like the gist of this job is there's some drakes that are causing an issue, that are cutting down his trade options and therefore his money, and he wants someone to go out and kill these drakes. He can't pay up front, but he can pay afterwards once his business gets going. So it's negotiable that way. Also, if you're able to do a job, it also then you can keep track of the fact that, hey, I've worked for Jarek before. Jarek knows me and, knows my group of fellow adventurers. So like we've got a working relationship. So if Jarek has another job that comes up, we want to be aware of that early. So those types of things are kind of, and you're building kind of renown as you're doing this. Let's pull up another one. So this is just a bounty. And the other thing I like about these templates I found is they're kind of messed up looking, which is good because you're in kind of a rough and tumble place and you shouldn't have all the information. This is just, there's a tribe of humanoids attacking travelers and merchants over the King's Wall. Basically, the Restwell Keep will pay 5 gold per head, and that you want to see Iron Helm at the bailiff's office for details. That's the job. Pretty simple. It's track down some humanoid bandits over the wall. Let's see what Citrian had. So, and I'm taking a lot of this from 2 places, just from what a West Marches style campaign is, and then from that 4th edition adventure path, which is a lot of tiny adventures sprinkled out this location. His Grace Citrian the Undana is offering 100 gold per Drake corpse collected from the Blight on the King's Wall. These corpses should be in pristine condition as they're being collected for arcane research. Interested parties, that this Citrian the Undaunted, he wants those drakes, but he wants the corpses and he wants them complete. So that's kind of the premise of what some of these jobs would look like, is that are there. And I am and went so far at one point apparently to build a job board. Man, I was really apparently ramping up for this, and then just it never happened. Yeah, see, here's a board with all of these jobs on it. I would post this like in a place where people can reach it online, and then, like I said, I would set it up so once per month we would have like a streaming day, and then people could submit their group and say, hey, we want to play this month. And I would look at that group and I would say, sure, that's cool. So yeah, that's kind of Chaos Scar in a nutshell. I kind of did this a little background. Generally, I like to use Mike Shea's stuff as far as his campaign planner. But because this was a pre-generated setting by WotC, I just kind of started digging through and putting things together based on the locations within Rustwell Keep and the characters myself, which, that works too. But today, since I've not got a lot to do because I over prepped for Down Outlands, so they haven't got to where they need to be yet, figured I'd take a look at maybe using the campaign planner a little bit in a backwards fashion for Chaos Scar, because it is something, like I said, I really want to get up and running. I just have to find a place where I can get a pool of players. I think one thing I do want to get across as well is not so much just a pool of the players I already have. I thoroughly enjoy the players I already have all across the board. Awesome folks. Really creative, push me to be more creative. But I'd like to broaden the folks that we play games with. I think that's extremely important. I will always jokingly call it spreading the disease. But bringing other people in, and even if it's their first time playing, if they're willing to be on a stream, then let's do it. But I want to give people the same enjoyment of a game that has brought me so much joy. And I want to have folks come in and tell interesting stories together. Especially if I'm lucky enough to find players from, diverse backgrounds and perspectives. I think that always helps. It's no offense to my current people I play with, but by and large, we're a bunch of guys, and probably 75% are, cis white dudes, which is cool. But I like games where the diversity is at the table, where there's more female players, where there's representation of different ethnicities and diverse backgrounds. I think it adds so much more to the experience. So, campaign hook. It's Chaos Scar lies over King's Wall as a deserted and relatively unexplored region. There are great opportunities. How that? Didn't I? Yeah. For wealth and fame for those willing to traverse it's what? Let's find a synonym for unknown, huh? Mysterious? Mysterious is always good. I thought about terra firma, but that's just not exactly correct. Regions. How about regions? One thing I also like about this particular setting is the like Restwell Keep in itself could be an interesting campaign area. There's a lot of tension in the keep between those who now control the keep and those who live just outside the keep's inner sanctum. So folks who want to play more often and get kind of caught up in that, that's a really interesting thing to find yourself dealing with. So again, I see some opportunity there for some fun storytelling if people really want to get invested in it, which is my hope. I would hope that I find a couple groups that want to cycle in and out. 6 Truths of the World. Let's see. Start off with Restwell Keep. Restwell Keep is a powder keg of religious, military, and socio-economic issues. So you have a keep that at one point recently was controlled by this, I think they were called the 6 or the 7, I can't remember, I'd have to look it up. A group of basically bandit lords. And they were pretty much like, hey, people who live here, as long as you pay your taxes, I don't give a damn what you do. So there was a high level of autonomy for the folks that lived there. And then a paladin came roaring in with their boys in tow. What's the dude's name? My mom, I think he's at the bottom. Nope. Yeah, I can't find my own notes today. Well, these are my notes, but I can't find dude's name. So big paladin guy comes roaring in with his troops. They run the 6 out, kill, I think, 4 of them, claim the keep, and basically they're Drysdale, Lord Drysdale. They basically claim the keep and say, you know, this is who we are. This is what we do. Maybe you could have jobs that require 2. That's interesting. I like that idea, Super Spike. Having jobs that maybe run concurrent, like one team has to complete their job before team 2 can even start their job. I try to keep groups on stream under 6 because at that point it gets real unwieldy for me to jump between, and I'm a big meanwhile back at the Hall of Justice DM. I like to jump between groups as far as like in the game, jump between players, because I don't mind separating them. I know it's a no for a lot of people, but it doesn't bother me at all. But like if I had eight players in one session, that's going to be hard for me to feel like I let everybody get their stuff in, because that's kind of the point. Like I want you to be, I hate when it feels to me like people didn't get an opportunity to shine. It should always be about the players, and we should always be their biggest fan in these games that we're putting together. So anyway, Drysdale tells the folks in Restwell Keep, you know, he's not looking to make them change their lifestyles at all, but rumors start to abound that he's going to force his religion on them. And there's a few religions that operate already within the populace there, and folks start using that as a wedge to drive between the actual people who live there and the occupying military force within the keep. Paladins have a reputation, and Drysdale gets a reputation, earned or otherwise, that he's going to attempt to make Restwell Keep a one religion only place. So this is always bubbling under the surface. Also, the fact that it's a military occupation. So you have soldiers occupying it's not even a city. It's smaller than a city, bigger than a town. Let's put it that way. Probably a town in D&D terms. It causes a lot of issues. to the point where the soldiers aren't allowed to go into bars now because of issues it did cause previously. So there you go. That's truth one. Truth two. Chaos Scar is full of ruins, unexplored cave systems, and even deeper mysteries. Yeah, mysteries. I didn't spell that right. Beyond comprehension. So one of the things about the Chaos Scar is, how did this massive divot in the planet get there? I don't know. That's the fun of it. Maybe it was a god's hand was cut off and fell to the planet, and it's buried beneath. So like a giant kaiju-sized hand is buried there. Maybe it's a spacecraft. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. Could be anything. It could be a sinkhole to the abyss. Who knows? If people play long enough, maybe I'll have to figure it out. But that's the thing, is it's just this big divot in the plant, in the planet's crust. It now has been there for thousands of years, so the area has built up around it. In fact, I think I remade the map at one point. Let's see if I've got that floating around here. I did do a bunch of preliminary work, like I said, on this. Hence the reason I think I want to get back to it. Yeah, here it is. So this would be the PC map. Here's the scar. It's just massive layered-in steps of an explosion. There's a fortress up there. There's mist. And I'm using Incarnate when I do stuff like this. There's an Acropolis. There's a huge outcropping. I think it's so big I can't, get a good look at all of it. There's landmarks. And then you have on the other side over here would be where Restwell Keep is. And then there's this broken down thing called the King's Wall, which isn't really much of a wall anymore. But that's kind of the last bastion of defense before you get to actual Restwell Keep. So, I mean, there's some roads in here, but they're super old and they're traversable, but not great. So you have like a swampy area down here. You have some scattered forest, but everything is taking place in the game here. And as you can see, a square equals a half mile. So each of these squares is a half mile. So from the wall to the actual beginning of the scar is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, roughly 12 to 13 miles from the wall. So the ins and outs should be relatively quick. Not a lot of need for, long Lord of the Rings style excursions, trips. So, I think that also is good because it is like an in and out, and there's a lot of stuff going on within the scar. That was the PC's map. So the map that I have made as the DM is loaded with all these encounters. Every number and letter is an encounter that's most likely taken directly from the 4th edition Chaos Scar Adventure Path. So it's a busy area. There's lots to be able to do. I don't want to go in and recreate the wheel. So I'm using this. I'm just adjusting it for 5th edition. And I might be doing a little bit of additions and subtractions of things. But yeah, that's kind of the layout of what the Chaos Scar looks like. I think sometimes being able to see something makes it a little bit easier to discern when we're writing these things. So that's the second truth. So what's our third truth of the Chaos Scar? On both. Oh, I like that idea of the atom bomb. So there is a campaign setting called Eberron. It's a WotC product, and Eberron had that happen, actually. There was literally a war between 5 nations, and no one knows who did it, but someone dropped a magical A-bomb on one of the countries, and now that country is just basically just a scarred wasteland. But it stopped the war, because since no one claimed responsibility, everyone is afraid someone else did it. So they've entered into sort of a Cold War. It's a very noir, exploratory inspired setting where magic is super prevalent. There are flying ships, magical railways. It's super cool. There are countries that are just monsters. They're ruled by monsters, and they're made up just of monsters. If you're just a regular human and you go there, it's probably not going to go well for you, because now you're the minority and looked down upon. Very cool setting. And that was used there. And I do enjoy that idea of like, what happened here? It's just in Eberron, we know the day of mourning was basically someone dropped a magical A-bomb, to the point that spells within this area are now alive. They're living spells. They now have sentience in some cases, and they don't dissipate. This is just a huge area where most folks can't survive. It's also the setting that gave us the Warforged, and Warforged are basically metal and wood golems who are sentient. They were being produced as disposable soldiers, and now the war is over, and they have to figure out who and what they are and what they do. It's, again, Eberron's full of a ton of interesting concepts. So on both sides of the wall, how do I want to put this? The edge of known civilization breeds strange bedfellows. What does that mean? It's probably a little vague. I might have to go in and redefine that statement. So there is a race in a different book in the what is that? Now I have to look it up. I apologize. Sometimes my memory is just so bad from my head injuries that it's hard for me to maintain focus, and also to like pull information that I used to be able to easily access. Maybe it wasn't in the settings folder here. There's Eberron, Spike, if you're ever interested. Well, then it's probably here. Oh, it's gonna bother me. Anyway, it's the guys that do I can't even remember the name of their webtoon. They do Big Con too, and I can't think of the con. This is really sad. I just have this hole in my mind where I can't grab onto what I'm trying to think of. It's really, really frustrating. I'm working real hard to find this thing in my library in my head, and it's just not showing up. Because then I could at least then search it in my search function on my Dropbox, but I can't even do that. Acquisitions Incorporated. Oh, man. Whoa. Oh, no idea what a relief it is to remember that. Jerry Holkinson is one of them, and I can't remember the other dude's name. PAX. They do PAX, the PAX Con. Penny Arcade, yes. Thank you, Super Spike. They have a long-running D&D game, and they would do these massive games and have them run by people at WotC like Chris Perkins. And they made a book for Acquisitions Incorporated. And it's really interesting. It basically is all about where are you hiding at? I know I have this book. I don't want to look in DA and D. I want to look in everything. There it is. Yeah, it was a collaborative book made by Penny Arcade and D&D or WotC. No, Acquisitions Incorporated. So it's basically the fact that this book especially is built for running a game like a business. Like Acquisitions Incorporated is like literally a business within Dungeons and Dragons that they hire people out to go on adventures for them. But the thing I found interesting beyond the extra classes in it and kind of the format of the game is there is a new race in this book. Let's see if I have to look at the table of contents to find it. It's the only thing about having so much stuff open in my Dropbox, it slows it down big time. Monsters, no. Trinkets, no. Where are you? The Verdan, page 72. All right, let's see if we can get there. Well, way too far. I can't remember who I was listening to, but it was a D&D podcast where they were talking about, Scott Kurt's PvP was online. He had been one. Yep, exactly. The gentleman who wrote The Name of the Wind is a recurrent player in those games, whose name also escapes me. Will Wheaton was a recurring character in these games for a really long time. So the Verdan are like mutated goblinoids. They are kind of like goblins and hobgoblins who basically passed under the shadow of creation. So they have they've not evolved. I think evolved is a bad way to put it. They've just mutated to something else. They're, as it says, they're cultural chameleons. So the longer they're around a different culture, the more they just adapt to their lifestyle. They're curious. They're kind of a mix between a couple different races that I like that way. But I think you can use them in a fashion where when people a lot of times are very, they're stuck in their ways as far as, goblins are bad, goblins s bad. And in some settings they're not. And I'm guilty of this too. But I think it would be interesting to have the Verdane be this in between, like a almost like an offshoot of goblinoids who are built more upon building merchant relationships. So having like Verdine caravans moving, on the other side of the King's Wall, moving goods between King's Wall and other like villages, non-human villages on the other side, because there are swamps, there are forests. Who lives there? Just to drop a hint, bullywugs and lizardmen definitely live there. There might be other encampments of adventurers that aren't human, are not, your classic D&D races of humans, dwarves, elves, and the like. Instead, there might be adventuring parties led by, hobgoblins or bugbears or whatever it may be, who are in there also just trying to get a day's pay. The one thing I found that I enjoyed a lot in the new D&D book that came out, the Depths of the Nether Deep, I think is what it's called, the new Critical Role adventure that came out like a week or two ago, is the idea of even starting a party having a NPC party of rivals. The rivals grow when the PCs grow, but they're growing on a parallel path off camera. So every time you're running back into them again, they're not the same people you met before because they've grown and evolved as well. They've had their own adventures, experiences, and the like. So they're not stagnant characters. I really like that idea. I enjoy the idea that if you have a party of adventurers and you run into Wagner the Hobgoblin and Wagnar's 3 buddies who are also adventurers, and you have a good interaction with them. Maybe you work together a little bit. Maybe you split the profit. That, you come back and play. You bring your party back a couple months later and play again. You might run into Wagner again, and he might go, "Oh, hey, how's it going? I went into this area. Don't go there. It's just full of undead. It's no bueno." Here, in an exchange of information, because that idea that my voice cracks like I'm 12. That idea that you can exchange that information. You don't have to have hostile relationships with NPCs. That you can even have friendly professional relationships with PCs. I think it's a big deal and could make it a very interesting part of the game. And again, this is just spitballing because currently I don't have any players, so let's see where this goes. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. So let's see another 6 truths here. Communities live and thrive on both sides. Side of the King's Wall, despite the danger. Just imagine you're a tribe of lizard people, and you're just trying to live your life. Exactly. Hey, look, it's Wagner. Oh God, not this guy again. And Wagner may look at you and go, "Hey, you're my best friend. Like, you're another leader of people. You're a mercenary. I know you. You're a solid individual." While you may think like, "This is the guy in accounting who I don't ever want to talk to again." Kind of a workplace atmosphere when it comes to that. I think that could be very interesting and fun. So let's say you're a tribe of lizardmen, and your chosen climate is that swampy forest area. That swampy forest area is real close to the actual where the scar actually gets to be bad. That's got to affect your village and your community. Would you not both be very, very wary, but also very much like, depending on your leadership, be very much, you could be xenophobic, or you could be on the other end of things saying, "Oh, hey, you've got metal weapons, you've got huge armor, you've got magic. Hey, since you're here, there's an Odiug in the swamp that's causing problems. Could you maybe go kill it? And in exchange, we'll pay you in meat, or we'll pay you in a talisman, or we'll pay you in free hiring of a scout from our village to get you to where you want to go further into the scar." It would allow for a lot of interesting negotiation, as well as strange alliance. Yeah, you had me at meat. Not saying what the meat is, but as I found out last night in Star Wars, meat is meat. So, not going to spoil anything there. But, building relationships with other communities on both sides of the wall. And I think that's part of the fun of a game like this, because if we have a bunch of small groups of players, a bunch of small parties, those relationships don't have to be the same at all. And in fact, you could have relationships that, because of the viewpoints of associates, relationships between adventuring parties, even in the same guild, could be extremely tense. So yeah, it's kind of a concept I would like to explore further. Let's see. The further one travels into the Scar, not only the more dangerous it becomes, but also the stranger. So my favorite adventure of all time is Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. In that adventure, you basically go into a dungeon and you find out the dungeon you're in is a crashed spaceship that's been there for a long time. I love that adventure because the first time I played it, I was genuinely surprised when we figured out it was a spaceship. It really grabbed me. Also, for perspective, also Stephen Colbert's favorite adventure, which is interesting. And you do have the ability to find like laser guns and, you know, concussion grenades and all these things. The thing is you're not sure how to use them. So it makes it interesting. I love that adventure. I like the mix of science fiction and fantasy. Spike, you talked earlier about, you know, the magical equivalent of a atom bomb. What kind of effect does that have on that area? What if it's like I said, what if it's a hole to the far realm and it's just full of aberrations? Or maybe instead of a classic like sci-fi spaceship, what if it's a crashed nautiloid ship, a crashed illithid or mind flayer spelljammer vessel. So maybe it's full of brine pools full of the tiny little worms that crawl into your brain and turn you into illithids. You could go in a lot of different directions there. I mean, it's a hole to the deep Shadowfell, so there's just undead on the other side of it. There's just a hole to the negative energy plane where everything undead kind of draws its power from. You could do a lot of interesting things with that type of unknown area, and you don't have to commit to it until the players get closer to it. So I have time to kind of think about it. But I like that idea of things progressively getting stranger and, you know, yeah, maybe the lizard folk are having problems with an Odiug who keeps coming out of the caves and into the swamp and eating them because they don't really produce a lot of trash, and Odiugs love them some trash. But maybe when the players get there, the Odiug is smart, and rather than just hitting them with psychic things that draw them in closer to be eaten, instead is welcome to Masterpiece Theater, and just wants to chat with them and explain to them, like, I would stop doing this if I had more food. Give me a different food option and I will stop eating lizard people. I want to do some different things. I think one of the best things we can do in our games is to try to take the familiar into unfamiliar territory. Yeah, oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, what if they're terraforming it to look like crap? Because the world they come from, that maybe they're silicates, maybe maybe when they tried to do this, they were a life form that lived in an environment that was not oxygen rich, that maybe they feed on, certain minerals. I mean, we could go real wild sci-fi at that point. Yeah, I love that idea. And that's the cool thing, Super Spike, is it could be any of that. And also, maybe folks go into that Chaos Scar and it's all of that. That maybe it's a a slight tear in time space, and we're just getting constant slivers of different multiversal windows. Kind of like the string, the spiral multiverse theory, but it's every time you're going into it, you're getting a different slice of it. It could be any of that. That's what makes it fun. So I'm going to save this because I'm not really sure how much more I'm going to get done in 9 minutes. So I want to talk about something else the last like 10 minutes before I jump out of here and go do adulting business. I just received my Kickstarter copy of the Hellboy RPG, which was massively delayed a few times, and it is by Mantic, and I believe the subsidiary Red Panda. So I was all in on this Kickstarter. I love Hellboy. I felt like the old Steve Jackson game, Hellboy RPG, was okay, but that game system is not my first choice. So this was and is a port of 5e D&D. There are some changes to it, which is good, but it's built on the spine of 5e gameplay, which is easy because I run 5e all the time. They released a PDF, oh gosh, almost a year ago. It was a mess. It was awful. And I began regretting giving them my money. I was very upset about it. I was like, this is going to be unplayable. It's just terrible. Whoever righted the ship for Mantic's and Red Panda did a brilliant job. First of all, the game screen, the GM screen is beautiful. Of course, all of it's beautiful because it's Mignola, Corbin, and Sook art, and it's just outstanding. But beyond the fact that it looks pretty, the Game Master screen has a lot of interesting information on the backside of it for the DM to use that is extremely helpful. There's a poster in there. I was like, oh, Hellboy poster. That's cool, but it's folded. So I'm like, oh, well, I guess. The thing is, I flipped it on the other side, and it's a timeline of the Mignola verse. Everything that ties into Hellboy in some way, shape, or form is listed there on this timeline. That is ridiculously helpful, especially considering in Hellboy, not all the stories take place in chronological order. In fact, that's one of the cool things about it, and one of the things I was looking forward to about potentially running this game, is that it could take place across different time frames. So these things are great. Then I got to the nuts and bolts of the actual books. So the first being the case file book, which is a smaller paperback style book. It's fantastic. One of the things I definitively applaud about what they did there is there's an entire section, like I would say a third of that book, that is, hey, here's how to run the game. Here's how to build a session. Because in that particular game setting and system, you're not running adventures, you're running case files. So the PCs are given cases, and they're BPRD agents, and they go out and deal with it. Brilliant. And the fact that they actually walk you through how to make an effective case for players to enjoy, that's incredibly well done and smart. But what I love even more about it is there's a subsection in that chapter, in that third to half of the book, that explains here are 6 tropes don't use, or I should say don't overuse. And one of them is time travel, of course. One of them is like the Hollow World, which is a Hellboy thing that is used by Mignola very, very rarely, but used. There's a few others. Aliens. Aliens are a part of Hellboy, but they're used very sparingly. I can't recall what the other 3 are off the top of my head, but I love that idea, because what it says at the beginning of that is if you overuse these concepts, which are very special, and when they appear in the Hellboy universe, things are very big that are occurring. If you overuse them, then you strangle basically that excitement of, oh, this is serious business. Because when everything is special, nothing is special. That advice is perfect and should be applied across all games. I need to take that advice and heed it more. So yeah, that's brilliant. Book is nice, thick pages. It's like I said, it's a paperback, so relatively durable. Full of a bunch of interesting pre-made case files by RPG industry folks, as well as I think there's a couple by different comic writers. Cool stuff. So then we come to the main book. Yes, Ancient Alien. Hey, Shaggy. If you've read any of the Hellboy stuff, there is a definitive prehistory thing going on, but there's also modern alien things going on as well. The fact there's an entire race of aliens who are literally just watching the Ogdru Jihad out in the middle of space to try to hope that it never breaks free. But I digress. So the main book was in a slipcase, like in a Mignola art slipcase. It's beautiful. Take the slipcase off. I was not expecting to get what I got. It is a leather, actual bound book, not a glued book, a bound book. Leather cover, like a dark gray with a black embossed BPRD logo on it. The outside of the book is beautiful. Pages again, thick, stock, lots of art. I really like the fact that they differentiate this version of 5e from standard D&D 5e. There are some different things going on here that make the game familiar but different, which I need to read more about to kind of grasp everything that there is. But one of the things I very much want to point out that I thought, again, was a great idea for folks who are making 5e rule-centric games but not D&D, there's a chapter in there that is literally like, here's the if you're a D&D 5e player, here's the translation. Here's what these things mean in our game. Here's how we've adjusted them. So it's like an easy way. If D&D 5e is the base language, this is a really solid translation guide that then allows you to pick up quickly. I haven't dug into the meat and potatoes yet to see if they've improved some of the things from the initial PDF, but if the production quality difference between that original PDF and the finished, delivered, in hand, printed product, then I have high hopes for the actual content in the books. Really good. And I was already excited to run some Hellboy 5e, but now I'm very excited to try to put together a mini series to run for that, just so I can again expand kind of what I run. I love running D&D, but hopefully if you've watched Extra Life, you'll see that I also enjoy running other games a lot. Also, when Star Wars Scum and Villainy episodes start dropping, you should be able to tell, that I also enjoy that. So another property like Hellboy, something, a comic series that I adore, and a character and a world that I think is fascinating. I hope I can get a chance to run some of that and do it justice as well. So I think that's it. Oh man, we had an hour on the dot. That's really good. Super Spike and Shaggy, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out. I always greatly appreciate you both and your input. You both gave me, first of all, Shaggy, Kids Incorporated should be the subtitle for Down and Outlands. Yeah, it's good. And then Spike, man, so many interesting concepts about the Chaos Scar that I'm gonna have to mull over. Because like I said, it could be all of them. That's some interesting stuff going on there. Yeah, well, thanks for coming on and joining me for prep school. You guys are great as always. If you're interested, tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central, down in Outlands. This is where the poop's going to hit the fan. We're headed to the end of basically chapter 1. There will be a big, ugly brawl getting ready to go down. So, and then, what is it? Next Thursday, Bad at Games. I think we're going to continue our current Space Haven run. We will be building a schedule for Bad at Games, as we are going to add in specified Thursdays for different games. We're bringing the Twitch Projo back for Fire Pro Wrestling, and I want to run an ongoing Project Zomboid series called The Ballad of Knox County. So, because I want to take my current character to Louisville, because Louisville is terrifying. Hey, it's down in Outlands. It's a definitive possibility that someone will poop in their drawers. So, and then the week after that, I'm back on Tiny Ming. I took the week off last week, but I'll be back. I've been working on some stuff. Also, I got this beautiful boy in the mail. I need more of these beautiful boys. They're quite glorious. And I barely paid over retail for it. Too bad I can't find a couple more, because they are going to be real fun to use for custom fodder, as well as just, army building. And I got a bunch of other stuff I'm working on, but yeah, thank you guys again. Just Minnesota goodbying you real bad right now. So I'm just going to say bye.